Welcome YouTube. Today I'm going to be making a video on how to repair a ding on a surfboard. I bought this surfboard yesterday. I got a nice big 10-footer long board. The waves here over at Cocoa Beach in Central Florida aren't particularly very large most of the year. So I went ahead and picked up this long board yesterday. Got a pretty good deal on it. But it does need a little bit of repair. It's got this ding here. It's got two other small dings down the board. But this is the main concern here. As you can see, it looks like there's an actual hole going right into the board. If you took that in the water, that would take on water, could discolor your board. It wouldn't float the way it's supposed to. Bad things would happen. I want to keep this board looking good, so I'm going to repair it. So I've got this ding all epoxy repair kit. Sorry about the glare there. You can buy this at any surfboard shop. It's basically just going to come with 2 parts epoxy, a mixing cup, a couple toothpicks, some sandpaper, and a little bit of fiberglass, which is pretty much everything you're going to need for a little small repair like this. So you can kind of see the supplies are going to come in the kit. And this is actually a pretty straightforward process to repair this as well. So what you're first going to do is take your sandpaper and just kind of rough up the little spot that you're going to do the repair in. That way the epoxy has something to stick to and you get a nice good bond. So make sure you get all the crap back out of it. So you've got the nice little sand mark here. And the next thing you're going to want to do, let me just throw this down here. I'm not using the using this. So the next thing you're going to do is go ahead and mix up your epoxy based off what it says on the instructions. So here, this is part A, this is part B. It's even labeled, pretty dummy proof there for you. So you put 2 parts A and 1 part B. So you go to your little measuring cup over here, and it's going to have gradations on the side. It's going to be in ounces, milliliters, just whatever it says there, make sure you follow that. And if you want 2 parts of this and 1 part of this, let's say that, for example, we'll just go to the milliliter side. If you put 15 milliliters here, that means you're going to need 30 milliliters of the other part for a total of 45 milliliters. So pretty straightforward. So go ahead and mix that up. And that's actually probably, yeah, that's actually a lot more than I need. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go down to like 5 milliliters or something. Obviously you don't want to waste your epoxy. Okay, so 5 is way down there. It's best to do this on a level surface. Oh, that's another thing. Wherever your ding is, you want that to be facing pretty much straight up in the air because you don't want your epoxy to run all over the place and make a big mess. So I'm going to go with 5 milliliters there and then 15, fill it up to 15 here. That'll give me 2 parts of the one and 1 part of the other. So there we go. We're up to 15 milliliters there. Let's take a popsicle stick, stir it nice and thoroughly. Let me see what the setup time is on this stuff. Doesn't say. Okay, this is not giving me a setup time, so I'm actually going to just keep an eye on it. When it starts to gel up a little bit, that's when I'm going to stick it down in here, because I don't want to just run through the hole and then not make a good seal. So I'll wait for it to gel a little. I think I'm actually going to go down and repair the other two while I do that. Okay, so we've got it gelling up a little bit. From here, all you're going to do is just take a little bit of epoxy, kind of drip it down in there. You don't want to build this up too much, because you're going to have a big dimple and you're going to have a lot to take down later, because you want to re-smooth this back out, make it a nice smooth repair instead of having a big dimple of epoxy there. So I'm going to try to just get some of this back out, because I actually have a little bit too much on there. Your goal here is to repair the ding without making a lot of finishing work for yourself later, because you're going to have to come back out, sand this smooth, and buff it a little bit. I mean, I guess you don't have to do that, but obviously it's going to look a lot better if you do. So what you're going to do now is just let this cure up, let it get nice and hard, and you'll come back and sand and buff. I'll show you that later on. Okay, so this is starting to gel up. One other thing you could do to kind of mitigate your sanding time that you're going to have to do is, once it's gelling, take you know, like a popsicle stick or something flat like this, and just kind of run it right over the surface and just kind of pull off the excess epoxy. That way it'll leave it nice and flat, but you won't have to be sanding for like ever to try to get the excess epoxy off there. So it's kind of hard to see what just happened with the lighting. I'll see if I can get it in a better position. Let me pop this thing off the tripod. Camera gets a little shaky, I apologize. Let's see, where's the repair? There we go, that's a little better. Get the camera to focus. Okay, so that's what you're left with. You see there's a little bit of extra epoxy there. I could maybe run the popsicle stick it over a little bit more, especially over on this side over here. Get a little bit of that mess cleaned up, because that's not even where the ding is at. But you get the idea. The next step will be just let this dry up and give it a good sanding. Okay, so here we are the next day. You can see the repair. It actually doesn't look too terribly bad, so if you wanted to just leave it like this, it would be watertight and you'd be able to ride the board. I'm just somewhat of a perfectionist, so I would like to see this flattened out and looking really nice, so that you can't even really tell that there was much of a repair there. So the way I'm going to accomplish this is take some nice gritty sandpaper. I've got a 60 grit here. That might be a little bit aggressive. You might want to go with something a little finer than that. But this is just kind of what I have laying around. And what your goal here is you don't want to sand real deep. You just want to barely kind of scuff up this top layer and just kind of smooth it out. It would be best here to use a sanding block, but I'm just trying to sand as small of an area as possible. And like I said, you just use the really heavy grit to just kind of knock it down. You can see here how it's wider here, wider here. Those are the high spots, and then right here it's not really sanding at all yet, so that's a low spot. So like I said, I'm just sanding really lightly. I just want to remove the very top layer and smooth it out. I don't want to take too much off. And I don't want to get these scratches too deep, because I want to be able to remove these scratches later with a bit of a finer sandpaper. So like I said, you want to keep your sanding really localized and just focus on this one little spot. I'm just trying to knock down. You see how this got this spot that's not sanded? That's a bit of a low spot, and this is a bit of a high spot. So I'm just trying to knock that down just a little bit. Once I get that nice and smooth, I will come up to a finer sandpaper. and remove the scratches from the 60 grit. Okay, so we're looking pretty good there. I'm going to grab some finer sandpaper and hit that up. So what I've got here is a bit of 400 grit. I'm just going to use this. Again, sanding nice and lightly. Try to stay localized to this one little spot, and remove those deeper scratches that we put in the board just a few moments ago. And you'll be able to see the scratches that are there. You see what I mean? How you can see, well, I don't know if you can see it, but I can see it. There's definite little scratches there from the 60 grit still, so I'm going to give it just a little bit more sanding so all that's gone. And then I'll move up to even a finer sandpaper. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. I'm going to go see if I got some 1000 or 1500 grit. Hit that one more time. And here we go. Got a 1500 grit. At this point, you may want to grab a little water and wet sand it. That'll help get it nice and smooth. I may do that in just a moment. But as you can see now, it's starting to smooth back out. And you can even hear the difference in the sandpaper as the surface smooths out. But basically, you want to get this nice and smooth and then come back with a little buffing compound or polishing compound and just buff this right out, and you'll hardly be able to tell that there was ever a repair there. Okay, so I've just got a little spray bottle with some soapy water in it. Just going to give this a little bit of water as a lubricant. Kind of wet sand this down. And give it a quick little wipe down so you can see what our progress is. Okay, so you can see it's pretty smooth as of this point. I'm going to grab a little buffing compound and buff that right out. I'm just using a little bit of this stuff here. You can use whatever you happen to have laying around, whatever polishing or buffing compound you want to use. Doesn't really matter too much as long as it's got a little bit of abrasiveness to it, and it'll smooth out. Okay, that should just about do it, I think. It may need just a little bit more buffing, but I think we're looking pretty good. And you can see there needs just a little more buffing. So I'm going to take a little bit more of that polishing compound that I have here, the cleaner. If you had something a little bit more aggressive, it probably wouldn't take as long. Oh, what the heck? Guess I need to shake it. There we go. Okay, we're looking pretty good. So I don't know, let's see. See if I can get a little bit up close. That's where the repair was made. You can still see some of the sand marks in it. So if I wanted to be really anal about it, I could just hit it with a little bit more of that 1500 grit, because I still got some of that grit from the 60 grit in there. You can see some of the circular motions from that. But if you stand back and look at the board, I mean, obviously you can barely tell that it was repair done. So it's really up to you as to how anal you want to get with it and how nice you want to make it, but I'd say overall the board looks pretty good, and this thing's ready to hit the ocean. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope this helps you out repairing your board, save you a little bit of money, and make sure you subscribe to my channel, check out my other videos. Thank you very much.